Well, good morning. I think I'm in the right room. I hear a lot talk about personalization and AI and all the things that go into that and how we really put that into a hotel. And when I got the call and was tasked with, hey, can you talk to this group of people who are in the technology business about putting AI in a hotel? I said, sure, I'd love to. And they said, can you do that in 30 minutes or less? I said, whoa, that's a lot, right? There's a lot to do. There's a lot to do to set you up to even get to the AI part, and we're going to talk about that a little bit right now. So thanks for having me. So a couple things, right? We're going to talk about creating tailored guest experiences. What does that look like? What does that look like in your hotel? What does that really mean? How do we tailor it to the consumer? What are they looking for? Ability to generate personalized marketing strategies, really to deliver seamless guest experience. How do we send out those pre-arrivals? How do we talk to the guests? Can you see my next screen? Sorry about that. So how could we send out really meaningful guest journeys pre-arrival, or send guest journeys out when they're on the property and talk to them why they're on the property? Using a better use of CRM system. How does that CRM system tie in? And then aligning the hotel operation to understand what we're doing, what we're sending, what kind of journeys we're putting architecture to, and how we're doing it. So what does success look like today? Well, understanding customer journeys, hyper-personalization, we've talked about a lot, consumer intelligence tactics, because that's where it all starts. It all starts with understanding the consumer behavior, likes, interests, affinities, and then starting a digital footprint with that consumer. And then use case development. How do you get started? So let's take this journey together. I'll tell you how I got started and how I start every day that I go to work, even on a Saturday and Sunday, because I'm consumed by this whole segment, right? It's really going to the Accentures of the world and the Gartners of the world and the McKinseys of the world, and downloading those apps, tailoring them to your interest, having them deliver those insights to you, and learning. The great thing about today is we're all learning this at the same velocity. We're all learning this together. It's like no other time that I've been in my career is that everybody's learning technology at the same velocity. We are on a rocket ship. So if you put some skin in the game, if you put some time into it, you're gonna learn just as much as the person sitting next to you, right? So those are my insights, partners. And then Salesforce. I mean, Salesforce is a leader in AI, and I'm not here to sell Salesforce. I'm just telling you that that's another area to go and another platform to look at, because they have an open platform. You can go into their trailhead, you can learn AI, marketing technology, CRM capabilities, marketing cloud, engagement cloud, personalization. You can learn it all. It's there for you to learn. It's there for you to get accredited. It's there for you to learn what's happening next in our business. And then putting this all in, you see Thunder there. You know, I got to work with an SI, a system integrator, that's going to help us as a business get to the use cases, get to the user stories, understand what we're trying to achieve, vision map what we're trying to do, so that I can sell it to the C-suite above me and or owners, right? Because that's the difficult part that we face every day, day in and day out. How do you sell it to the owner? How do they understand it? How does the person 2 levels above you understand it? And they've helped me do that. Actually, Carter's in the room right now. He owns the business, but he's been a great partner of me so far. So really, to start the journey, do you really understand multi-channel versus omni-channel? So I'm a marketer at heart. I'm a sales, marketing, commercial guy who drives revenue outcomes. I'm not a tech guy first. So everything I do, and the next screens are going to show you, is how do you get set up to drop the data reading AI into the model of what you're trying to do. There's a number of steps that have to be done before you get there. And the big segue in the last couple of years, and even moving forward, is going from a multi-channel business, right, where the business was putting out, all the reference points to the customer and steering the customer and having the business in the middle, to now the omni-channel, where actually the customer is sitting in the middle. The customer is making the choice. We are in a choice economy. If you are not sending in the choices to the consumer across the different data points and omni-channel touches they're touching, then they don't know what your digital brand experience is all about. They don't know what your brand is all about. They're confused, right? So it starts with understanding who that customer is to be able to serve them up around the different multi-channel customer focus, where the customer sits at the center and all the channels are around that customer, and we're serving into the customer for the customer to make the choice. This is kind of what it looks in real time. You see over to the left, your favorite media sites, down on the left corner, your social feeds. You see in the right corner, that's Google. You see Google, paid ads, sponsored ads. You see the Turtle Bay there. That's our journeys we're sending out. You see our website down there. It's all connecting so that the digital brand experience actually makes sense to the consumer. And when the consumer's on our site, that's when we're engaging in personalization and engagement with beacons and pixels and GTMs and all these other tricks of the trade that we have, understanding the consumer data, really producing a consumer profile, a digital profile, establishing a digital relationship with the consumer who's coming to your website. Once you do that, once you earmark the consumer, then you have a better chance to de-anonymize. They can sign up, they can become part of your fandom. You can then, journey them, activate them, SMS, email, however they choose to opt in, or not. Or I can identify an IP address and follow them through the omni-channel. So when I first started this, and I started this at Turtle Bay, from the first time in to my website to the time they came back, it was 30 days. It was 17 touches through the omni-channel. Through personalization, through serving them up in this choice economy, through the omni-channel, I was able to establish a digital relationship, get them back in half the time, in 14 days, with 7 touches through the omni-channel. So I shrunk the conversion cycle down by just personalization, just understanding the consumer, sending the consumer things that they were interested in, what they were looking at, right? We knew what they were looking at. So that's an important piece. The next piece is, do you really understand your consumer in your hotels? Or are you just casting a wide net and throwing out emails or SMS journeys or whatever way you're touching them? In order to be really effective, you have to understand your customer. You have to understand the top 25% of your customers. That becomes your seed customer. And I'm telling you all this because this is super important to when we get to the AI piece of this presentation. Because if we don't know our consumer, if we don't know the mosaics and the personas and the behavior of our consumer, AI really can't do their job. Make sense? Yes? You with me? Okay. All right, so it's really about scrubbing your data and really going to a consumer data center, call it Experian, call it MMGY. There are some of the consumer data intelligence platforms. Experian, 300 million users. Every one of you who holds a credit card here, Experian knows everything about you. As I take my data, went to Experian, scrubbed it all, went to the top 25%, called it my seed customer, knew everything about the customer, knew what media channels they went to, how much TV they were watching, Should I be hitting them up on OTTV? Should I be going at them on social? Who are they? What are they listening to? What are they watching? What are they seeing in the omni-channel? That is all part of understanding the overarching guest in your hotel. All right? So then it brings us to the mosaics. This is the fun part of the job. This is the part away from technology that you get to use your imagination and you get to use your creativity and you become a creator of who that traveler is. So you understand the demographics and socioeconomics and location and financial measures and property characteristics, right? These are really important traits that you have to know about your consumer, because this is the way that you're gonna instruct AI to set up the journeys, to be able to talk to the consumer the way they want to be spoken to, right? And this is the way that, you know, in a hotel like Turtle Bay, where the average daily rate was up in the 800s, meaning some rooms were 1,000 plus and more. Same at Hotel Del, right? Same at a lot of other hotels I've been at. We need to go after a consumer who actually we know that can afford that kind of vacation, can afford that kind of stay, can afford to be able to drive the ancillary revenue in all the experiences and activities. So this is a pretty important piece. And when you go through this piece, you have a lot of fun with your marketing department. This is where MarTech and MarCom really start to come together. This is where it really starts to get built, right? And you really get into some fun names on some of these mosaics, right? Power Elite, Promising Families, Booming with Confidence, you know, Suburban Style, you know, all these things. And you find out a lot along the way. You find out that actually the boomers have most of the money. They're the ones that have the cash and are willing to spend. And you find out that the millennials don't want to spend near as much as the boomers. It's just a thing. So what cohort are you going after? You need to understand the cohort. And I'm not saying you need to pick one or the other. I'm saying when you are talking to them, when you are sending them journeys, when you're emailing them and SMSing them, or however you are going to connect with them, you need to know who they are. That's where personalization begins. That's how you're going to set it up in the future. So here's just an example of personas. You know, here's Power Elite. We picked Power Elite at Turtle Bay. We thought that was a mosaic that definitely was part of the journey at Turtle Bay. And we broke that down into 3 segments: experience chasing explorers, curious and confident families, and control couples. We had some fun with it. And then we knew that everything we did from here on in was going to be via persona and also via content pillar. That was from the individual standpoint. There's another one on the lower right-hand side, you see. That's actually Hotel Del. We track our personas by building. At that location, we are 3 hotels. We are 3 in-codes with 5 different neighborhoods. So we really feel that the persona belongs in the building to understand the experience that we want that guest to have and how we want to market them. Any questions so far? Anybody have any questions? Okay.
When you're looking at these personas, are you sort of looking at the customers that are coming to you today, or are you actually looking at the market of potential customers when you're kind of looking at this?
Yeah, a little bit of both, but I would say mostly on the side of historical data. That's historical data that we've taken and given a sample set and scrubbed that data to get to the highest 25%, to then get to a mosaic, to then get to a persona. Right. Yes. Here's the next big important part. And this is what a lot of hotels don't do. A lot of hotels don't understand the persona of their traveler and don't market to the persona. And a lot of hotels don't really understand the content pillars that they're marketing for. Right? So instead of throwing all these jumbled, different things that are not really an aligned digital brand experience, meaning I may see something completely different on social, that on Instagram maybe, that at Facebook versus TikTok versus the website, and we're just throwing content out there. Unless we boil it down to a pillar, unless we boil it down to these pillars that give the ability to give a good digital brand experience and an understanding of your brand, you're confusing the consumer. So we have to stop confusing the consumer. Put it out there, chunk it down. It's really not that hard of an exercise. It really works out pretty well. Here's another hotel. This is a hotel in Mexico that I worked with. Here are their personas and content pillars. They went a little crazier on their personas. I would say that's a lot, because when you really start marketing and really getting into propensity models, these are a lot to handle, right? But this gives you an idea of the way they did it. And then on the right-hand side, some of their content pillars, they chunked it down to things that were simpler. So that's when we get to finally the use cases of what we're trying to do with AI, right? How do we really want to revolutionize the customer engagement? Because that's what it's about. It's about engaging the customer. It's about a digital relationship with the customer. It's all digital first now. That's the way the communication happens. Get a deeper understanding of who your customer is through the collection of data points. Where are you ingesting the data from? Where do you start ingesting the data from? What are the data points that you're going to bring into different data spaces to be able to take action on to drive revenue? Pretty important. And then gaining all the individual preferences, like we talked about. De-anonymization techniques, that's when somebody is raising their hand and say, yep, I want to become a fan. We're going to get data from them that says, I'm into health and wellness, I'm into horseback riding, whatever it is, and then we bucket them into a persona. Now you can see where it's starting to model itself. We're understanding the consumer, we're putting them into a persona. Now we're getting to the point where we're going to allow AI to start actioning that persona, right? So this gives us the ability to deliver those highly relevant, personalized messages that we talk about. And then the API integrations. Where is that data collection coming from? What is the single source of truth you're piping it into? And are you getting to a single source of truth? Because one thing hotels and hoteliers have done for a long time is buy inexpensive tech products or tech enablement platforms and just put them into play. And when you do that on a whole lot of different tech stack enablement platforms, you have a whole lot of platforms in your tech stack that's not talking to each other. And that's what we've done for years. So we put in point-to-point solutions without ever getting to an end-to-end view of the customer. You will never get to a 360 view of your customer, and that's the biggest frustration of a lot of us in the hotel as it stands today. Any questions? Okay. Here's some use cases right here. What are the use cases of why you're going to put in AI? How do you start? Well, I'll tell you, out of dumb luck and not knowing anything different but being a self-trained techie, which is as dangerous person as you can find, I can get to the deep side of the conversation and then hopefully call in my solution architects to figure out the rest of it. But, start small. Start with one use case and try and put it in and perfect it and be able to show the ROI and develop the ROI model of what it's going to return and prove it out. Then you can go back to whoever is going to release that funds for you or release the resources for you and say, hey, It's working. Check it out. It works. They're like, oh, what's next, right? And then you start putting in what's next. It sounds simple, and it is if you start small. And I find that a lot of people I talk to, and I talk to a lot of people, and I talk to a lot of crowds about this, is they don't know where to start because they're trying to start big over the whole data model. And it just gets too much of a chocolate mess after a while, and then it goes away and nobody does anything, right? And then you come back to it, it's the same thing. Start small with your use cases. In this particular instance, this was about marketing communication and marketing personalization, and really a guest console which gave me the 360 view of the customer journey. Where at any moment of truth in the hotel, I knew where the customer had been. I knew what defect they had. I knew what experience they booked that day. At any one of my touch points in my hotel, any one of my associates knew it under a single pane of glass. It was magic. It drove revenue like crazy. And then how do you produce the itinerary? How do you get AI to produce an itinerary for you? Because we spend hours and hours and hours producing itineraries for luxury TAs, travel agencies, for their guests, right? So how can we automate that process? So that was one set. So let's boil it down. Let's really kind of start understanding what the architecture looks like. This isn't exactly starting small. This is somebody who started small and then grew and now is putting it in multiple hotels. So I put this up here to show you Hotel 1 and Hotel 2. In this particular instance, I'm bringing it from 2 different hotels into 3 different data spaces. But my API connections there are bringing that data from spa, website, membership, PMS, experiences, all of those data points, right? And I'm piping that in and ingesting that into my data spaces. Based on the consumer intelligence, now I lay this data cloud model over that data, start gathering those consumer intelligent points, and now I'm ready to action what I want to do. That's where my AI sits. It sits over that data model. Then I can start marketing through Marketing Cloud, CRM, whatever you have, getting some analytics on it, really driving it, really driving the actions. This is where the personalization really begins. Any questions on the data model?
Got one here.
Can you maybe talk about like how you like maybe A/B tested it to show that you actually achieved incrementality in terms of revenue?
How we achieve the revenue?
Well, meaning like how you measured it, because I think like a big part of this is, you know, at least from my angle, is like how do I know I got it? Like
Yeah.
I drove.
Yeah, I think I can go into that on the next couple of screens. I can show you what we did to be able to track it. All right? Any other questions on the data model, API connections, where the data points are coming from, how we're doing that? Yeah.
Ready.
How easy has it been to work with some of the external vendors on getting those API connections, and what has, how much of a lift has it been?
The lift is not from the API connector, right? Happy sitting in the room here. I've done work with Happy. They've done a phenomenal job on getting those API connections with us. It's the integration with the other tech stack environments you have, right? It may be a block in your spa system, right? It may be a little difficult or challenging in your golf system. Because what happens is technology is outpacing the systems that have been put into our hotels for years. Does that make sense? A little frustration on that one? But that's what's happening. But there are different ways around some of those API connections, but most of them are starting to get easier and easier and easier because they know they have to start opening that up to an API connect or an open API connection to be able to get to the promised land. Okay.
We have one more over here.
Oh,
In your previous slide, you talked about the existing data. Is this something that your historical data?
historic, historical data?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah,
And
so
al-
this is piping current data that's going in there and then bringing historical data into the platform to begin. Is that what your question was?
Yeah, where was
Yeah.
the historical data from? And also, is this close to near real time, or is it mostly because like going back to his question on like optimization, but I'm talking about how does the model work in this case? Like if I'm not optimizing the model, I don't see like in this diagram or in this representation, like how are we optimizing the model? We are just collecting data, and it's almost like an A/B testing model where I optimize it. But also in the AI model, you may have to do a little bit of data back into the system to kind of optimize it, right?
Yeah, I mean, so it's near real time,
Okay.
okay? And it's both historical and current moving forward reservation data, right? How it's optimizing, I can tell you in this particular model, you and I can have a conversation
Sure.
offhand, and I can tell you the model I'm using and all that. I don't want it to be so much of a commercial, you know, on who I'm using, but I can talk to you about that.
Okay, thank you.
All right. So this is when you get to personalization, and you have the right beacons in place, and you have the right personalization model in place, then I really get to a good place with serving up personalized websites when they come back. So once I identify who the consumer is, that consumer goes out typically and goes shopping in a lot of different other areas, right? It may be Google, it may be Instagram, it may be TikTok, it may be on a media site, it may be all these different kinds of omni-channel touches, and then they come back to compare is usually what happens. And when they come back, I know who they are, and I serve them up the model, the website, the personalized website of what I know they were looking at on our website, by their activity, by what they were looking at differently on our website, their whole journey on our website. The first one was all about roaming romantics, which was a persona of another hotel I was at. We were able to serve them up on the left side a whole personalized website that spoke to couples and roaming romantics and spoke to all the things that I knew they were looking at on their initial shopping trip. And same with the second one, active and curious families. Now, this is an area where I could track the ROI back to this very readily, knowing when they came in, when they hit us the first time, when they came back, and did they actually convert when they were on these websites. And the conversion on the personalized websites over the standard website I used to deliver was 300% increase. It was unbelievable. You know, we struggle as hotels to get to that 1% conversion mark. We were converting at 3+. It was amazing. Hyper-personalization, these are kind of the journeys that we would send out and how we would formulate them. And if you want to, contact me at a different time, I can tell you who we use and how we did it and all those things. I don't want to go into that now. But all these different journeys and actions are set up to be automatic. If you see on the left-hand side, you see a propensity model there. I knew based on this customer to deliver a highly effective converting on-site journey, I wanted a propensity model that said, hey, this is the highest propensity of things that this consumer would buy based on all the knowledge we know of them. And we would send them a journey on that. Or on my 360 view of the consumer on my guest panel, that propensity model sits in my guest panel so that when I'm talking to somebody in a club environment, or I'm talking to somebody at concierge, I know the conversation to have with them about what would enrich their journey and their experience much greater while they're on property. I can begin talking to them about that. So that was a huge win. And then rebooking journeys, and these are how the automatic journeys are happening through this particular model. Here's a look at the guest dashboard. You look on the left-hand side, I know who the consumer is, I know lifetime value of the consumer, I know where the consumer is at any point in their location based on RFID bracelets, all those kinds of different mechanisms. I know everything about the customer right there. I know everything about their reservation in the middle. I know what their special interests are and preferences are, all on that left-hand side right there. And then you have cases. They're the cases down there that would generate a defect. I need my air conditioner fixed. My pillow isn't the pillow I wanted, or all these different defects that come into a hotel on a daily basis. This is where it would track. And then in this case area, AI would learn the auto response model and the auto response language to get back to the consumer in a quick amount of time. So that was very, very helpful. And all that was augmenting the processes of the employee and the associate, not to take their job away, but to spend more time engaging with the consumer. That was the huge win. Huge win. Like when we talk about, it was talked about before, what does change and transformation look like? What does that training look like to get to adoption? There's a lot that goes into it to talk about we're not taking your job away. We're not automating the process to take your job away. We're actually automating the process to talk about the things you love, to talk about the place that you live in, that is the sense of place, and the authenticity to the place that can give a better guest experience and a better consumer experience. On the right, you can see the propensity model. On the right-hand side, the lower, AI starts filling in the guest itinerary. And even at one hotel, we started shading in things that were programming during the day that they didn't book, just so they knew it was available to them if they wanted to book. That gave us a lift in ancillary spend quite a bit. So the guest dashboard was a complete win. And then in the end, it doubled my website traffic at both locations I put it in. It tripled my conversion rate. It drove my top line by 40%. It increased my direct acquisition by, I forget the exact one, but it was like 25, 30%. And then it engaged in a better digital brand experience. People understood who we are and who we wanted to be. And in the end, it drove revenue beyond my expectation. So, any questions? Any further questions? You want to talk more about it? You can hit me up on LinkedIn. I'm happy to talk to you about it. But it is something that takes time. It takes marketing technology meets marketing communications. You've got to set that whole process up in personalization and consumer intelligence to get to the model to let it take its journey and work for you in the use cases you want. Yeah.
In your ROI, I mean, like, did you, like, were there other stuff going on with your hotel at the time? I mean, like, there's, like new features, or was it kind of like here's a stable kind of business model, so I know marketing drove the incremental revenue, or because I mean, I just relate to my own problems. I mean,
right.
if I implemented, and I'm a big fan of what you've done, but if I implement any of my personalization tactics, I'm always sitting there with, hey, it's, something else, in the environment, like, we got to bet our suite, or this new offering's coming out. How do you kind of?
Yeah, it makes sense. I mean, in the one hotel, it was about a renovation, but a renovation in an iconic hotel that operated at 90% occupancy for years and years and years before I got there and renovated it, right? So, you know, is there always change going on? Probably. Is there always updates going on? Well, hopefully, probably, right? But in this particular case, it was definitely an update and a renovation, but at a very successful hotel. So I didn't really play that into the factor as much in that situation. Any other questions? Well, thank you very much. Have a nice day.